Good morning, one and all. Today we are going to learn about security tactics and usability tactics and testability tactics. In the last class, we are discussed about some of the achieving qualities. Those are, we are having 6 types of achieving qualities. So, and also we introduced the tactics. So, what is tactics? Okay, now, what is the importance of tactics? How the tactics is nothing but design decisions. What are the main importance of these design decisions while the architect the particular architecture, and what are the different types of tactics we are having. Already we discussed about availability tactics and importance, and how we can perform the availability, which type of design decisions we will take, we discussed already. And also we are discussed about modifiability tactics, and what is the importance of modifiability tactics. So, which type of design decisions we will take while modifying or changing something in the existing without missing the actual information. And also we discussed about the performance tactics. Okay. So, what is the performance tactics, which type of decisions the architect will take to improve the performance of the system. So, already we discussed these 3 types of tactics, totally 6 types. Already we discussed in that previous class 3 types of tactics. Now we are going to discuss about security tactics. So, security means in general avoiding unauthorized access. Okay, now in the single way, in the single sentence we can call it as avoiding unauthorized accesses and providing better services to the legitimated users or authorized users. That is what actually the security. And also we can define in detail here. The tactics for achieving security can be divided into those concerned with resisting attacks, okay, na? And those concerned with detecting attacks, and those concerned with recovering from attacks. That is the main reason. Okay, na? So, the concern with resisting attacks, and those concerns with detecting attacks, and those concerns with recovering from attacks. That is the main motto of security. Okay, na? For that purpose, the architect will take the tactics, means design decisions, okay, na? To resisting the attacks, and to detecting attacks, and to recovering from the attacks. That is the main thing, and all 3 categories are important. Using familiar analogy and putting a lock on your door is from a resisting an attack. Okay, na? So, for example, using our familiar analogy example, putting a lock, in general we can put the lock to our door or main door, whatever, is from our resisting an attack. First we can primarily we can resisting an attack, we can lock our door. Okay, na? Next, having a motion sensor inside of your house is an form of detecting an attack. Okay, na? So, suppose we are inside of the house, whatever actually, but we are having some motion sensors. Okay, na? Who are unauthorized persons are entered into our home. Okay, na? So, it gives some senses for us. Okay, na? That motion sensors we are having inside of our house is from of detecting an attacks. It is used which type of sensors are used to detecting the particular attacks. Okay, na? Who are coming and going, and who are entered without having permissions and all. Okay, na? That is called another one. And third one, having insurance is a form of recovering from an attack. Sometimes we will the attackers can attacks our useful information regarding to our bank information or according to our transactions and all are also insurance. So they need, we need meanwhile we can lose some our information, it may be a chance. So if it will be attempt, so you need to recover the particular from that attacks. Okay, now so we are getting some problems, we are getting some attacks. So which type of attacks they are, how to detect them and how to recover from those attacks. So for this purpose the architect will take the tactics, means design decisions to provide the better security for that legitimated users or authorized users for easy better access and services. So that is the main motto of security. Okay, now meanwhile they can identify the unauthorized or illegal users. Okay, that is security tactics. And also so according to that we need to know resisting attacks. First one, resisting attacks. So what general examples we have taken, just we can lock our door, okay, na, for to resist the attacks. Okay, na. So here we are following some steps to resisting the attacks. First one, authenticate users. Authenticate users is nothing but they are having some passwords, they are getting some passwords by that particular senders. Okay, na. And also they are having one time passwords. Okay, na. And also they are having digital certificates, and also they are having biometric identifications provide authentication. So once we are getting authentication by a particular parties, so they are given the passwords for us, or also one time password, or digital certificates or digital signatures. Okay, and biometric identifications provide authentication. So the authenticated person or users having these types of important confidentialities. Okay, and that is called authentication users. Next, authorized users. We want to get the authentication, the user need to authorize. Okay, na. So the authorization is ensuring an authenticated users. Yes, the authorization is ensuring for authenticated users has the rights to access and modify either data or services. Once we have the authentication, so the person or the user have the or get the rights to access the data or services, or to modify the data or services. Okay, na? And access control may be by user or by user class. Okay. Next, maintain data confidentiality. So while in generally already we know the information security concepts. Okay, na? The sender sends some information to the receiver. Okay, na? So meanwhile, while sending the information or confidential matters to the from the sender to receiver, so we are maintaining some confidentiality in the form of encryption. In the form of encryption, already we know that what is encryption. We are adding some bits to that particular original data. So while it is received by the receiver, it can be decoded by particular person by using some private keys and public keys. Okay, and already we know that. So that is the meaning of maintain data confidentiality. So here we need to see data should be protected from unauthorized access. Data should be protected from unauthorized access. Confidentiality is usually achieved by applying some form of encryption to data and to communication links. And also encryption provides extra protection to persistently maintain data beyond that available from authorization. So that is the meaning of maintain data confidentiality and maintain integrity. So integrity means what? Embedding. Okay, na? So you need to maintain integrity. What that means? Data should be delivered as intended. So it can have redundant information encoded in it. So, when we are delivered the data intended, it can have some redundant information. So, duplicate information encoded in it. So, we can add something to the original data, or we can add some duplicate information to that particular information. That duplicate redundant data or redundant data must be encoded to the original data, such as checksums or hash results. So, with the help of checksums and hash results, which can be encrypted either along with or independently from the original data. So, by using checksums or hash results, we need to encrypt the particular original data by adding some information to that original data. That is the meaning of maintain integrity. Next, limit exposure. So, attacks typically depends upon exploiting a single weakness to attack all data and services on a host. So, it's mainly some attacks can depends on exploiting a single weakness to attack all data at a time and services on host. Okay, who is providing the services? That is called host. The architect can design the allocation of services to host so that limited services are available on each host. So, at a time we need to avoid those attacks. We are not given the permissions to the particular host at a time. So, we need to give some limited permissions to the particular host to provide some limited services. That is the main thing, that is called as limit exposure. Next, limit access. Okay na? The host everything the limited permissions untayo according to that workbase, as well as the users will also have some limit to access the particular data. So, we need to reduce that particular thing. We are using firewalls. We are using firewall to restrict the access by the users. So, that is the main thing. The firewalls restrict access based on message, source or destination ports. Okay na? So, messages from unknown sources may be a form of an attack. Okay na? Suppose sometimes the messages are coming by or came by some unknown sources. Okay na? Those unknown sources may be a form of an attack. So, it is not always possible to limit access to unknown sources. So, but we can't it is not possible to always control the unwanted accesses. Okay na? Sometimes it is difficult to control it. Next, detecting attacks. Okay na? So, how to detect the attacks? Okay, the attacks will be restricted, but how to suppose they can forcibly or unknowingly they are occurred. So, how to detect the attacks? That is the main thing. Okay. Next, here the first point, the detection of an attack is usually through an instruction detection system. So, with the help of by using the instruction detection system, so usually we can detect the attacks. Next, such systems work by comparing network traffic patterns to a database. So, these particular instruction detection systems work by comparing network traffic. Okay, now, based on network traffic, these instructions detection systems will be work. So, based on that traffic patterns, it will identify the attacks and store the transactions information is recorded into the particular database. That is the meaning of it. And in the case of misuse detection, so for example, we are somewhere missed it while detecting, the traffic pattern is compared to historic patterns to known attacks. So, it is already maintained the historic information, it is recording and it is stored in databases. Sometimes we are missing it to detect the attacks. So, this backup, this recording information, this historic information is help us to know the attacks. So, what happened? Okay, na? That is in the case of anomaly detection. Anomaly means outliers. Anomaly detection, the traffic patterns is compared to a historical baseline of itself. Frequently, the packets must be filtered in order to make comparisons. So, that is the detection attacks, and we are also using filtering can be on the basis of protocol. So, we need to filtering the particular information or data. So, based on a protocol and means by using protocols, that is TCP IP protocols, TCP protocols and else. Here we are using TCP flags, payload sizes and source or destination address or port number. With the help of these TCP flags and payload sizes and source or destination addresses or port numbers, already we will learn these terminology and our taxonomy in these computer networks. So, with the help of these protocols we are filtering the particular information. Next, instruction detectors must have some sort of sensor to detect attacks or manages to do sensor fashion and databases for storing events for later analysis, tools for offline reporting and analysis, and a control console so that the analyst can modify instruction detection actions. Okay, na? With the help of these things we can detect the attacks. Next, removing from attacks. After detecting we need to remove the attacks. So, we are removing from the particular attacks. So, how to? Tactics involved in removing from an attack can be divided into those concerns with restoring state and those concerned with attacker identification. So, for either preventive or punitive purposes. Okay, na? So, first we can involve this removing from an attack can be divided into those concerns. What are those? With the restoring state, we need to restore the state, and those concerned with attackers identification. Okay, now we need to concern the particular attacker identification, we can restore the particular state. And the tactics used to restoring the system, the architect is using some design decisions to restoring the system, but how to restore? They are using some design decisions to restore the system or data to a correct state overlap. In which state it is overlapped, for that founding that correct position they are using some design decision with those used for availability, since they are both concerned with recovering a consistent state from an inconsistent state. While applying this procedure, they are recovering from consistent state from the inconsistent state. Next, one difference is the special attention is paid to maintaining redundant copies of the system administrative data such as passwords, access control list, domain name services and user profile data. So, we need to maintain the redundant copies definitely. So, how to maintain these redundant copies of the system administrative data DBA, that is the person is called DBA. So, which type of redundant data the DBA will be maintained means such as passwords of that particular legitimate users and access control lists. So, who will get the permissions to get the access, and domain name services. So, which is from which they are taking services, domain name services from which environment, and user profile data and the particular authenticated or legitimate user profile data. This much of information we need to maintain the redundant copies for safe side. Okay, na? So, that is the another way to recover from attacks. The tactic for identifying an attacker is to maintain a audit trail. Okay, na? We need to maintain the audit trail to identify the attackers. That is another decision. And also the audit trail is a copy of each transaction applied to the data in the system together with identifying information. Okay, na? That is the main use of this audit trail, is a copy of each transaction. So, now it will take the copy of each transaction applied to the data in the system together with identifying information. Next, auditing information, whatever the information we are maintaining, that auditing information can be used to trace the actions of an attacker. So, what is the use of this auditing information? It will trace the particular actions of an attacker. So, where he moves and all, already we are known in the sensor systems, and support non repudiation and support system recovery. And audit trails are often attack targets themselves and therefore should be maintained in the trusted fashion. Okay, that is the main thing how we can save from that attackers. So, that is this is the diagram, summary diagram of security. So, the attacks will be occurs. So, we need to provide the security for that from that attacks. So, how we need to provide the security, we are using some design decisions or tactics. Those are restricting attacks and detecting attacks and recovering from an attacks. So, restrict the attacks, we need to follow these things, and detecting attacks we need to follow this, and recovering from an attacks we need to follow these things. Okay, na? That is the main thing what we discussed above. Next, testability tactics. Testability tactics. The goal of tactics for testability is allow for easier testing when an increment of software development is completed. So, when the software development is completed, so we need to perform this testability tactics, but already we discussed in this previous. So, the testability, the testing is done at design level, at implementation level, at deployment level. So, okay, na? So, mainly we can test at the end, but we can test meanwhile we can perform the testing, finally we can perform that deployment testing. Okay, na? So, that is called the meaning. Okay, na? Increment of software development is completed. Okay, na? Next, the architectural structures for enhancing the software testability have not received a much attention as more mature fields such as modifiability, performance and availability. Such a high percentage of system development cost, anything the architect can do the reduce this cost will yield a significant benefit. Okay. Suppose while developing these architectures, so sometimes with the when the person is concentrate on, when the architect is concentrating on particular fields, modifiability, performance, availability, such a high percentage of system development, it will increase the cost. Okay, na? So, in this case we can, the architect will see to reduce the cost will yield a significant benefits. Okay, na? That is, this is a diagram for it. Completion of an increment. Okay, now we need to increment the particular testability while architect the architectures. Tactics to control testability, faults detected. So, this is the main thing. Next, the goal of testing regime is to recover faults. Why we can make the testing? To recover the faults. So, this requires that input be provided to software being tested and that the output be captured. That is the main cause. What is the main goal of testing? To discover the faults. Okay, na? So, this requires the input To discover the faults, what it requires the input be provided to the software. Okay, now whatever the software developed, we need to give the input to that particular system. After being tested, it will give some output, and also it will capture some output. Next, executing the text procedure requires some software to provide input to the software being tested and to capture the output. This is called a test harness. This is called a test harness. Next, input output. So, here we are having three things. First one, record, playback. So, record or playback refers to both capturing information. So, these record and playback tactics are used for capturing the information and crossing the interface and using its input into the test harness. The information crossing an interface during normal operation is saved in some repository. Okay, so it will stored in some repository. Recording this information also allows test input for one of the component to be generated and test output for later comparison to be served. So, that is the recorded and playback. Next, separate interface from implementation. Separate interface from implementation. Separating the interface from an implementation allows substitution of an implementations for various testing purposes. Okay, na? That is the stubning implementations allows the remainder of the system to be tested in the absence of the component being subordinate. That is, next, specialized access routes and interfaces. We are using some specialized testing interfaces allows the capturing or specification of variable values of a component through a test harness as well as independently from its normal execution. Next, internal monitoring. So, built-in monitors. Internal monitoring, we are having some designations, that is built-in monitors. So, the components can maintain state, performance load, capacity, security or other information accessible through an interface. Okay, na? So, here we can maintain the state, performance, load and capacity, security and other information accessible through an interface. This interface can be permanent interface of the component or it can be introduced temporarily. So, that is the built-in monitors. Next, the common technique is to record events when monitoring states have been achieved. Okay, now we are using some common techniques to record events when monitoring the system been activated. So, when it is working, we can monitor the some states according to the events. That is the meaning. Monitoring states can actually increase the testing effort. Okay, na? So, when we are observing things, it will increase the testing effort. Since test may have to be repeated within a monitoring turned off. Okay, na? Increase visibility into achieve activity of the component usually more than outweighing the cost of the additional testing. So, this is the diagram for testing. Completion of an increment every time we to implement the testing, and we need to perform the testability, manage input output and internal monitoring. We are having these design decisions, we need to take the design decisions for testing. Next, usability testing tactics. So, how the users feels how it is easy it is, okay, na, for users. Already we discussed usability means here the user feels like which type of decisions the architect will take while design the architectures. This the usability is concerned with how easy it is for the user to accomplish a desired task and the kind of support for the system provides to the users. Okay, na, that is the main the usability tactics. Okay, na, how the user feels how easy it is to accomplish a particular task, and how the system is providing the good support to the particular user. Two types of tactics support usability, each intended for two categories of users. So, here we are having two types of supports usabilities for two different categories of users. The first category, runtime, includes those that support the users during system execution. Okay, now it will mainly focusing on runtime, okay, now including those support the users during the system execution. The second category is based on the iterative nature of the user interface. Iterative nature means some it will be executed again and again, some instructions will be executed again and again, that is iterative or looping procedure, that is the second category. Okay, na? And design nature of the user interface design, and support the interface developer at a design time. Okay, na? It will support the developer at a design time. It is strongly related to the modifiability tactics already presented. Okay. So, this is the user request, this is the diagram we can see here, user request, okay, na? And tactics to control the usability, user given appropriate feedback and assistance. After he feel it is good, getting good feeling, it automatically the user will give the good feedback according to that usability. Next, runtime tactics. Here we are having two types, runtime tactics, maintain a model of the task and maintain a model of the user, that is the main thing, that is called runtime tactics. In the case, a model maintain is that of the task model is used to determine context of the system. So, it is see the context means what, this see the overview of the particular system functioning. So, that is the main thing. It can have some idea of what the user is attempting and provide various kind of assistances. For example, knowing that sentences usually start with capital letters would allow an application to correct a lower case letters in that position, that is the thing. Next, maintain a model of the user. In the case, the model maintained is of the user, it determines the user's knowledge of the system, is the mainly it determines the user's knowledge of the system, who is using particular thing. The user's behavior in terms of expected response time and other aspects specific to the user or a class of users. For example, maintaining a user model allows the system to pace scrolling to the pages do not fly past faster than they can be not be read, that is natural. Okay na, మనం చదవగలిగిన దాని లాగా కలిగే పర్సంటేజ్ లోనే మనం స్క్రోల్ చేస్తాం పేజ్ ని, నాట్ దట్ మచ్ టు దట్. ఓకే నా, దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ మెయింటైన్ టు మోడల్ ద యూజర్స్. It's mainly it defines the knowledge of the users, how they are using in the very good potential way. Next, maintain the model of the system. So, in this case, the model maintained is that of the system, it determines the expected system behavior so that appropriate feedback can be given to the users. The system model predicts items such as the time needed to complete the currently activities. So, it is a main the time needed to complete the currently activities, that is maintain the model of the system. Design time tactics. So, separate the user interface from the rest of the applications. So, localized expected changes is the rationale for semantic coherence. So, that is the software architect patterns developed to implement these tactics and to support the modification of the user interfaces are this is model view control, percentage, abstraction control, scheming and arc slinky. So, these are the things we are using here. So, here this is the architecture for the usability, user request, separate the we are taken the usability tactics. These are the usability tactics: separate user interface, support user initiative and support system initiative. So, with the help of these things. Okay. So, here in this class we discussed about the usability tactics, testability tactics and security tactics. I hope all you understood. Thank you one and all.